Link to original text and author's account is in the description. Among all the life in the stars, some brutal, some passive, the one most common trait is a hostility towards the alien. The alien doesn't react as we do, or think as we do, and always must be considered a threat whenever encountered. Now, this is not unjustified or unthinking. For all the differences in the details, each species that reaches for the stars does so with the hope of reaping the resources beyond the cradle of their homeworld, as that world is stripped bare. All beings travel the stars on the gifts of the brutal struggle for survival against starvation, predators, prey, disease, and the often violent whims of the cosmos. In spite of this, the brood owes its continued existence to an alien, a species that calls itself human. It was during the exodus of the Serpent Sector that the uneasy alliance between the Tkepak and the humans was formed. Both of our species had been harassing each other over the mineral-rich asteroids of the system for weeks, though neither was willing to escalate the conflict. Suddenly, several core ward systems lost contact, driving both sides to suspicion of the other and preparations for more severe conflict, even though both species denied responsibility. Circumstances changed rapidly as the first strikes from the drifters were reported. The increased readiness of the scouting outposts allowed a few survivors to make it back with reports of the attacks by the predatory void-dwelling species. An entire swarm was bearing down on the sector, with enough ships to outnumber both human and Tkepak combined several times over. The Tkepak hybrid signaled immediate evacuation from the sector, but the drifters would have most of the transit paths back to Tkepak space enveloped. By the time the transports would be able to break the system's gravity well and initiate trans-dimensional drives, it might be too late. Most brutes would be destroyed before making it within range of the home fleet. The humans had a better chance of escape, as their bordering systems only had indications of a few drifter scouring bands, but they too were facing casualties. This was when the strangest thing the hybrid could imagine happened. A human, one designated as their commander, contacted the hybrid and offered the escaping brood safety in human space, in exchange for the remaining Tkepak combat craft, aiding and protecting both convoys from drifter raiders. Certainly, this was a trick. The hybrid could not trust an alien who would have us exterminated as soon as we entered human-controlled space. It was an absurd thing to even offer an alien safety, let alone assistance. But the hybrid decided that more brutes were likely to survive going with the humans than trying to break through the drifter blockade, and so enemies became allies. To seal the temporary alliance, the humans sent several of their cargo ships, hastily refitted with crude but functional Tkepak-compatible life support systems, to assist evacuating the thousands of brood still in the system such as this one. The ships were crewed by 6 humans each, some of whom were still testing the retrofitted methane extractors and nitric oxide bleed. The ship carrying the brood was one of hundreds that joined the human refugees in the convoy to the transition point. The human commander negotiated with the hybrid that each of their respective fleets would screen either side of the mixed transport convoy. Communing with the hybrid later told this one of the battle. The humans in their small, nimble craft meeting the oncoming drifter fleet in chaotic close-range brawl that seemed excessively dangerous against the destroyers and capitals of the drifter fleet, but also succeeded in distracting fire away from the transports. The hybrid utilized the larger, but slower Tkepak ships to hold formation, focusing fire and destroying many drifter ships. But the ordnance that the combat ships evaded penetrated into the heart of the convoy. Though it is unknown exactly what hit, one such stray shot stuck this brute's transport, causing a methane line to rupture and ignite. This brute did not know the ship it traveled on well enough to know how to stop this fire, and pulled itself back away as far as it could in the cramped compartment. Still, parts of several brutes within the ship were burned to death. The remaining brutes were forced to huddle helplessly, scent of dismay marking their recognition of their inability to fix the problem. The brood near the control cabin sensed the humans' dismay at a fire on board their craft, expressed by a loud repeated chant. A visiting human historian explained that the word being chanted referred to their act of mating when I inquired to its meaning. The brood should not think too long on why they would chant of mating when under stress. The alien does not react as we do. The human crew was already in self-contained environment suits because the necessary atmospheric mix for Tkepak was toxic to them. The obvious solution for the humans would be to vent the atmosphere to suffocate the flames before they could spread to the methane reservoir and cause an explosion. Leaving this brood to die and ensure the safety of the other humans would have been what this brood expected. However, one of the human crew unstrapped himself from his seat and ran back, tearing a red cylinder from the wall as he passed it, operating a lever on the cylinder to send a spray of powder into the flames that he charged into. Just then, another blast hit the ship, knocking the broods within and the firefighting human to the deck. The almost dead flame roared back to life, casting itself over the left side of the fallen human that no longer had the cylindrical tool at the ready. Chanting of mating once more, the human desperately swatted out the flames on his body and swiftly scooped up the cylinder once more. One-handed this time and sprayed back into the flames until the extinguishing agent reached the base of the methane leak and finally extinguished the flames. Staggering to a hull breach station, his left upper appendage hanging loose and withered, the human slapped on a small vacuum plate to the ruptured pipe and held it in place, one-handed, as the adhesive surface cured to the pipe. Another of the human crew, this one chanting of defecation, then ran back, pulling the burned human away from the pipe in order to wrap his injured wound and drag him back to his secured seat in the cabin. The ship convoy made it the rest of the way to the transition point, and the transports that were still capable left for human space, along with the remaining Tkepak warships. The remainder of the battered human fleet oversaw the final ships that were still capable of trans-dimensional jump before retreating as well. The human that stopped the fire survived, though he lost a burned limb, and the brood entered text communication with him. When asked the reason he did not vent the cargo hold, he answered that no sailor worth his salt would leave his passengers to die like that. The brood is told that this is an ancient human expression of a valuable individual, even though sodium chloride is cheap and plentiful in the Terran oceans. The brood probably should not think too much on the human's reasons. The alien does not think as we do. Author's note: I am aware that Roman soldiers used to get paid in salt, but an ordinary space sailor probably won't have keen knowledge of history.